For many Cherokee people, the last step our ancestors took in our original homelands was on to Blythe Ferry. In this Cherokee Almanac, we learn the significance of this site and what it meant to never see home again. Along the Tennessee River, just south of where it meets the Hiawassee, is Blythe Ferry, an important site in the history of Cherokee people's forced removal from our homelands in 1838.
That was the last part of where they were going to leave their nation.
Blythe Ferry was established by a white man named William Blythe and his Cherokee wife, Nancy Fields.
They were married in 1809, and shortly after that they established the ferry and later became quite a large plantation.
Blythe Ferry later became a major extraction point along the northern route during Cherokee removal.
There were actually 4 routes that were used for removal. 2 of those were mostly land routes, but they had to use ferries in order to cross certain large waterways.
At one point, there were 4 boats in operation at Blythe Ferry, loaded with people, wagons, livestock, and other supplies. The ferry's owners were paid for the ferry's usage in removing Cherokee detachments across the river. Principal Chief John Ross negotiated an agreement for Cherokee leaders to supervise removal efforts. 9 of the 12 detachments under the supervision of Chief John Ross crossed at Blythe Ferry. On October 16, 1838, Dr. John Powell of the Bushyhead Detachment complained that the ferry operators had been intentionally slowing down their progress in an effort to coerce more money out of the removal efforts. There were a total of 490 wagons and 3,868 horses that passed through this site.
One of the descriptions is that at night they were camped 4 miles back to accommodate 60 or 70 wagons.
In a letter to Chief John Ross, Detachment Leader George Hicks laid bare his thoughts on the evening before he crossed.
We are now about to take our final leave and kind farewell to our native land, the country that the Great Spirit gave our father. We are on the eve of leaving that country that gave us birth. We are forced by the authority of the white man to quit the scenes of our childhood, and we bid a final farewell to it and all we hold dear.
I can imagine looking back how sad they would have been that they lived here for so long and to have to leave their home.
It was our elders and it was our babies who died in the stockades and on the trail. So they had already experienced all of that. And they knew that they were leaving behind their ceremonial sites. They were leaving aside these home places where they had spent their entire lives, the rhododendrons in the mountains themselves, the caves. And so as they sat and waited for that ferry to take them away from their homeland forever, I can only imagine it was overwhelming sadness. To know it was the last time that they would be there and have their feet in their Cherokee homeland.
An estimated 9,000 Cherokee people took their last step from their homelands onto the boats at Blythe Ferry. The names of 2,535 heads of household are etched into the memorial walls at Cherokee Removal Memorial Park.
And they still had such a hard road and such an arduous journey ahead with even more loss. I think it's hard for any of us today to fathom.
The last detachment of Cherokees crossed Blythe Ferry on November 12, 1838.